lovely good morning to you, our Camnet viewer. This is a breakfast show, a show that comes to your set every morning from 07 hours to 09 hours. And of course, we bring you nothing but the best of what is happening around the world. We discuss important topics that are going to bring development to the country. This is what we are known for. This is what we are meant for. Camnet TV, not just another channel. Even this morning, we bring you nothing but the best of what is happening around, and we are going to have fruitful discussions in important sectors of our economy. Of course, today on a Friday, we usually talk about business. We look at the business sector of what is happening around, and I am your host, Prudence Chota. And of course, when I come on this program, I don't come alone. I come with my co-host, who's going to introduce herself because she looks stunning this morning. My colleague, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Prudence. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
You know, I'm just trying to have some, warm tea.
Yeah,
so
very important.
Yeah, very important. It's a breakfast show. You need to have some tea. Like my colleague said, this is a breakfast show where we always look at business every Fridays, bringing you nothing but what is happening in the business world in Zambia. I'm your co-host, Prudence Miriam Kaimba. But, I was expecting you to introduce me in the lovely manner that you always do.
Of course I have. Miriam, I have the stunning, beautiful lady seated adjacent.
Thank you. Thank you. But anyway, we have a lot of things that we have lined up for you on our show this morning. We'll have two guests that are going to join us later in the show. We're going to be talking about the youth empowerment in the new Dawn administration, Prudence, and also look at a discussion with Zambia Statistical Agency. Exactly.
Yes, Miriam, if in case you're just tuning and you're wondering why, remember that in 2020 we were supposed to have our census. Our census is conducted every 10 years, but unfortunately we didn't have it. It was pushed to 2021, and of course it didn't happen. And now it was pushed to 2022, and this year, August, we are expecting to have our census of housing and population. It's very important to know how many we are in the country. As it stands right now, we just approximate and we don't know. But what is the importance of this activity to the country, in case you're watching and you might be wondering? And how is it you as a citizen can play your part in ensuring that the 2022 census of housing and population is made possible and easier for the Zambia Statistical Agency? Stay tuned for more of that on this program today. And of course, there is a topic, Miriam, that everyone debates about, the topic of inflation. All we should know is that the Zambia Statistical Agency is the one that releases the country's inflation every month towards the end of the month. But you might be wondering, how do they come up with the figures that they give us? Because others have argued to say the cost of living is going high. But the Zambia Statistics Agency keeps saying, no, inflation is coming down. What's that? So we have the agency in studio to explain some of those.
We hope to get as many response feedback that we need so that we can understand this topic better and well. Anyway, right about now, we'll go direct into our morning boost just to keep fit. Stay tuned.
Good morning, Camnet viewers, and welcome to Morning Boost. I'm so glad that you've tuned in. Let's do some simple basic workouts for you to stay fit and you go about your day. All right, so we'll start with a warm-up for a minute. Let's go. That's 1 minute warm-up to warm up your body. Relax your muscles. Let's bounce. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and how are you? It's good. So it's gonna be a 1 minute warm-up. Just a warm-up, let's go. Almost there. Okay, we're gonna run now. Let's go. So we're gonna work out for 3 minutes. And thereafter we'll do a cool down. We're cooling down. Let's go. See what I'm doing? That's the movement of my feet. That. I need that from you. Let's go. Let's run. Let's go. Very basic today. Keep going. And 4, 3, 2, march now. Okay, that was your first workout. Let's go to the next one. Kicks now. 1. Kick and let the blood circulate on your legs. Let's go. 3 minutes workout. After that, you do a cool down. Kick. Let's go. Kick. Bring it to the knee now. Knee high. Squeeze the tummy when you do that. Let's go. Squeeze here. Go. Squeeze here. That's the part I'm working on. Let's go. Easy. Back to running now. Let's go. You need this every morning. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Go. And kick now. Kick, side kick. This side. Back. This side. Kick. Go. Lift your leg high and kick. Go. 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 And that's all you need every morning. Let's conclude now. Let's go. And let's run. Let's run. Bring in the kick now. Kick. Kick. Again. Kick. Bring it to the knee now. Knee. Knee. Last kicks. This one. And this one. This one. Let's go. And marching. Very simple what you've done today. Looks like you have not done anything, and yet it's able to work out. Let's march. Let's go. You're almost there. It's almost 5 minutes of a workout. So thank you so much for tuning in. Basic workouts today, and have a blessed day. And I'm signing out. My name is Isaac Matsa.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to Camnet TV. I hope you have exercised. Morning boost is very important. When we come to this program, always we emphasize the need for people to exercise. Remember that you cannot do your daily activities if you are not in good shape. Always exercise. Miriam Kaiba.
Exactly, Prudence. I couldn't stand and do some exercise because I was having my tea. But anyway, in the morning, just for the record, I did exercise. And it's very, very important that you, our viewer out there, make sure that you exercise every day in the morning, just to keep fit as you get running up for your day every day.
And
Yeah.
of course, away from exercising, Miriam, one way you can also keep yourself fit, one way you can keep yourself driving into good health, and one way you can keep yourself being active is knowing how much about your health is okay. Remember that on this program, we also bring you the Doctor's Corner, where they talk about different illnesses, where they talk about different health issues that affect us almost on a daily basis, some of which we don't even realize that it can be a health condition. Like Miriam, I think 2 weeks ago, we were listening to doctors talk about headaches. And most of the time, these are things we ignore. You think if I have a headache, maybe let me just take Panadol and it will go and stuff like that. But you don't know that it might be a problem if you don't consult health experts. So we did look to that. And this week, Miriam, what is it that we are looking at?
Okay, so we have Dr. Nancy Mbasela, who's going to talk about subcutaneously. Cutaneously. I hope I pronounced that well. Anyway, let's get to see what she has in store for us.
Good morning, viewers. I'm Dr. Nancy Mbasela from the Medical Women Association of Zambia. This week on Health Talk, we have been speaking about lupus. We have said that lupus affects Africans usually more than other races, that Africans die more from lupus, African blacks die more from lupus than other races because of late diagnosis and late treatment. This week we want to bring awareness to lupus so that if you show any of the signs, symptoms, or your child or your neighbor or any of your relatives show any of the signs and symptoms that we've been speaking about, you rush to the hospital and make sure they are diagnosed or investigated for lupus. We have spoken about systemic lupus erythematosus, we've talked about discoid lupus, and we've talked about neonatal lupus. So today we are going to talk about subacute cutaneous lupus erythematosus. We are also going to speak briefly about childhood lupus and conclude on neonatal lupus. So subacute cutaneous lupus erythematosus is one of the forms of lupus that is not common in black Africans. It is actually more common in Caucasians. So this lupus usually affects the skin, and it usually only appears after sun exposure. So the flare-ups occur because of exposure to UV rays. So the treatment is similar to other lupus in times when the rash is excessive, or we can say if the rash is too complicated. So this lupus can be avoided simply by wearing clothes that cover places that are usually exposed to the sun. So by wearing long-sleeved shirts or trousers, by wearing hats, and by wearing sunscreen. So that is all about subacute cutaneous lupus erythematosus. Yesterday we went into neonatal lupus. We said that it usually occurs because a pregnant woman has transmitted autoantibodies to the fetus, and this baby, when they are born, in a few weeks they'll present with a rash, and rarely they'll present with heart conditions. So we said that the rash usually goes away on its own, but I can't overemphasize today that even if the rash will go away, it's very important for mothers not to miss appointments. So if your child has lupus, yes, the rash will go away, but you should still see your doctor so that they can observe the rash, make sure there are no infections, and also the child has not presented with cardiac or heart problems. So we also mentioned that with heart problems, these can be treated or they can be managed, and if they are severe to the point that they are causing conduction problems or arrhythmias, a child may need a pacemaker. Another form of lupus that we will mention briefly is drug-induced lupus. So this lupus usually comes because of certain drugs. So if you are on drugs for hypertension such as hydralazine, if you are on certain antiarrhythmic drugs, that is, if you have that heart condition where your heart does not beat properly, there are certain medications that you can be put on, and some of those medications can cause lupus. And then also TB drugs, specifically isoniazid. There are a lot of medications that can cause lupus. Usually this occurs in people who are already genetically predisposed to lupus. So if your twin has lupus, your identical twin, you have that chance of getting lupus. In women, because of the estrogen that we have spoken about. So whenever someone gets drug-induced lupus, the presentation is similar to systemic lupus erythematosus, but it is less severe than systemic lupus erythematosus most times. And it goes away completely once the drugs have been stopped for the past 6 months. So if you have symptoms of lupus, you're on TB medication, or they change your antihypertensive from hydralazine to something else, by the time it's 6 months from now, your lupus would have gone away completely. Another rare form of lupus is childhood lupus. So we said that lupus mainly affects women of childbearing ages. So childhood lupus usually affects children who are less than 10 years old, and rarely does it occur in children who are under 5, with the exception of neonatal lupus. So in children, usually lupus is very severe compared to adults. They present early with kidney function problems, so their kidneys start to fail earlier than if that systemic lupus erythematosus had presented when they were in childbearing ages. So they will also have other symptoms of lupus that we've mentioned, like fever, joint pains, that distinctive rash that we spoke of that looks like a butterfly on your face. And if your child has any of these symptoms, the rash, the joint pains, the fever, make sure you take them to a hospital. Make sure they are screened for lupus, and if they are diagnosed, they are treated, because the key to decreasing deaths due to lupus is through early diagnosis, early treatment, reducing flare-ups, so by stopping smoking, by making sure you don't go into the sun for a very long time, by wearing sunscreen, by reducing the amount of stress that you're under. These are the ways that we can prevent lupus. So if you have any relatives, children, neighbors that you think may have lupus, advise them to go to a hospital, because like we've said, lupus can be a very dangerous disease. It affects African blacks. Usually we are at a higher risk of dying more than other races. So this week we've spoken about lupus. We've talked about the different types of lupus. We've said that it can be diagnosed. We've said that it can be managed. We've said that it's chronic, so it is going to flare up. So there are some people in whom the lupus flares up maybe once every few years, so every individual is different. And then there are those who flare up every few months, even just after treatment, the next day they'll flare up. So avoid all the things we've spoken about that can lead to flare up. Make sure you get checked. make sure you get diagnosed and you get treated. I've been Dr. Nancy Mbasela. Thank you for joining me on this week's Health Talk.
There you heard it. That was the Health Corner by Dr. Nancy Mbasela, who was talking about lupus. I hope our viewers out there, you did get one or two things with regard to what lupus is all about. Lupus is a disease that occurs when the body's immune system attacks your own tissues and organs. And according to the doctors out there, she did mention that blacks are at high risk of being affected with this kind of disease. So if you have a relative who is having this challenge, please do seek medical attention before it gets worse. Prudence.
Of course, Miriam, and remember that the doctor also did mention that this kind of condition affects mostly the blacks, black Africans. They die more of this disease. So if you notice something unusual about your skin and anything like that, where your body itself begins to attack its tissues, please do visit the health facilities so that you can see how you can be helped with regards to that.
Yeah, we don't want to see a situation where it becomes worse. You know, you just do self-prescription. I know a lot of people are very, very much used to this kind of term. No, I won't go to the clinic. I'll just, you know, go to a pharmacy, buy some medicine, buy creams,
and apply on the skin.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, go to the hospital. If you're having such challenges, please go to the hospital, seek that medical attention so that you can know exactly what is happening to your body. Exactly.
Of course. And Miriam, right about now, this is the time that we look at how is it that our local currency is faring against other major convertibles. When we come on this program, always on Friday, we emphasize that if you do business, you want to order goods from outside the country, it's important to know how is it that our local currency is faring against other major convertibles. So right about now, we are going to look at the money market. And there you have it. The Zambian kwacha against the United States dollar is buying at 16 kwacha 89 ngwe and selling at 17 kwacha 22 ngwe. The Zambian kwacha against the British pound is buying at 20 kwacha 61 ngwe and selling at 21 kwacha 02 ngwe. The Zambian kwacha against the euro is buying at 18 kwacha 89 ngwe and selling at 19 kwacha 26 ngwe. The Zambian kwacha against the South African rand is buying at 1 kwacha 04 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 06 ngwe. That is the money market for this morning. Kwacha there has in the past month, 1 month or so, proved that it is stubborn and of course constant. We've not seen the kwacha appreciate or depreciate like the way we used to see it in the past year. We've seen a bit of stability in our local currency, meaning we are...
I think we're heading in a good direction.
Of course, Miriam.
Exactly.
It's very important to have a stable currency. We don't want today we wake up 20 kwacha, tomorrow we wake up 16 kwacha, the other day 23 kwacha.
It even becomes very hard, especially to people who do business, you know, because you find goods go up, the next minute, you know, you have challenges, you kept so much capital to order such goods, and then the next minute, you know, the prices have been increased, so it becomes hard for you. Anyway, right about now, we know that the new Dawn administration has been on the major advocacy on talking about youth empowerment in the country. We did see constituencies being allocated a lot of money from the previous 1.6 million kwacha to the 25.7 million kwacha, and then we have some, you know, they have called for youths to come on board, give pitch up ideas so that they can be given some fund and see how best they can empower themselves. So right about now, we'll play a clip, and on the other side, we'll be joined by a guest who's going to help us discuss how youth empowerment is faring in the new Dawn administration. Stay tuned.
This is a group of youths in Lusaka's Chibolya compound representing a total of 200 who say they want to turn away from illicit activities in the community and contribute positively to the country's development. Chibolya compound has for long been labeled problematic, as it is regarded as the center for activities like drug and alcohol abuse, as well as theft, among others. The youths who spoke to Camnet News, however, say they have received a second chance of life through the Constituency Development Fund (CDF) by submitting business proposals.
But the CDF for basically what she the so but function she to phone na watu ndwena ngobandele wena salamu muliza condition ivezanga example na lelo zachinda that kumkamo nasi mwazi
nonga sikomo kuba president batilekera bo banani kai munga isisinga ine sininga nami ine kuchiwolia bameno wakati bot passage program yafu ni take a ball background ine sininga nami nje kupanga lokubali sininga nami kupanga lokubali kani lebe bochita pese kane nonkala chemchiwolia so chi
ena Ismail jambo kwani support ndo shtanani ma practice coach akili I said the boxing music what dancing and what footballing was it quite easy.
So would like this thing which they are supporting us, the supporter, would like them to be coming and supporting us so that we can go far.
Meanwhile, Hari Mwangankumbula wa 12 Councillor Mr. Aaron Mwanza says the youth will be trained in various ventures to set an example to other youths in the compound.
We shall use this opportunity for CDF to empower this group. Definitely they are going to be empowered. They will form a cooperative which will be empowered in different types of skills that they will be doing. Then you want also those who want to do skills, go for training. We've identified a school, BH school is within our area, and also the Kanyama Youth Project that will also be training our youths in various skills.
Meanwhile, the Future Community Foundation Project Coordinator Mr. Clinton Gando says partnering with the local authorities, the organization is determined to bring change to Chibolya compound.
So I just appreciate these youths who are with me here for their positive action, like the positive mind which they have, and they are promising us to say this issue we complain about drugs, we won't hear about it. This issue we complain about the gun robbery, they are promising to say no, will be the whole community, Chibolya community, will be totally transformed.
The Ward Development Committee chairperson has also added his voice.
But again, what we are appealing to is to those NGOs, organizations, any organization that can come on board again to help to build up that piece that we have there, the ground. We put like everything together. We can put a basketball court, we put a even for women, tennis, everything, so that they can participate.
The youths who say they plan to engage in many business ventures, among them welding, livestock and music, have not shied away from showcasing their skills. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
CDF, some monies that has been allocated to different constituencies from 1.6 million kwacha increased, from 1.6 million kwacha increased now to 25.7 million kwacha allocated to different constituencies. And these monies, anyway, a lot of area members of parliament have said they will allocate some funds to empower some youths in their constituencies and encouraging them to form cooperatives. And in studio this morning, we have an economist, Webster Wadia, who is going to help us discuss how youth empowerment in the new Dawn administration is faring. Good morning, Mr. Webster, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I know we had you last time on the show. In case we have some people just joining us this morning, I'd like to find out who is Webster. Just a brief background about yourself.
Well, my name is Webster Walia. I'm an economist, specialized in financial economics, development economics, as well as goods and services markets. The money markets, what's happening in terms of demand, supply, production. So that's pretty much what I get to, look into, and also get to give recommendations in terms of how best you can go about it.
Okay, now let's go to our topic of discussion this morning. How do you take or view the empowerment of youths in the new Dawn administration?
Well, I think it has really come at a very good time in terms of looking back where we're coming from, where we had COVID, where we had economic recessions, the economy wasn't doing very fine. People lost jobs, youths, having nothing to do. So I think, the increase has really come at a very good, point, whereby we are now building, the economy in terms of a lot of people are going to be empowered, and, we are going to encourage, production activities through, loans, grants, and, youth empowerment.
We have seen that the government, Prudence, has introduced the Ministry of SMEs, to empower the young people out there, those trading small businesses. Your take on that?
Well, I think it's a very good, step in the right direction.
Is the ministry, can we say, is the ministry going in the right direction in doing its purpose?
Yes, really, I think they are doing, a very good job. Because if you're looking at, the recent statistics that were, reviewed by PACRA, having known that they've now, registered a lot of, companies in the first quarter of 2022 compared to the first quarter of 2021. This simply means that, a lot of people have now been, encouraged in terms of forming cooperatives, so at least they can now, get to register their businesses. And, I mean, the importance of registering businesses is that, number one, it's going to encourage legal businesses. Looking at what's happening right now, people's businesses or people's income, they've, we are failing to track them in terms of, because their businesses haven't been registered. But because of, the Constituency Development Fund, and, one of its requirements is that, for one to be able to access the fund, they have to register their business. That simply means that, now people are now, fighting and striving to have their businesses or entities being registered. So I think it's the right step in the right direction with regards to having more legal businesses, which is also going to add value in terms of government revenue. Because once you get to have your business being registered, it means, you're going to be paying tax, which is good for the government in terms of their revenue being collected every year. It's going to increase in terms of, which means that you're going to increase in terms of government spending. You're not going to be resorting to borrowing, but you're going to resort to collecting more tax and financing government expenditure. And also it simply means that now, youths are going to have, a wide range of, money, at their disposal in terms of engaging in business activities.
You are an economist, Mr. Walia, and of course you know the way the sentiments work in our economy with regards to investment and stuff like that. In the clip that we just played on TV, we did see youths in Chivoda. We know that Chivoda compound, for the viewer, has been a notorious place for quite some time. It's been a notorious compound full of gangsters and criminals. People will be stealing, sometimes even in broad daylight, for those who travel through that road. You'll find that you are parked there, there's traffic, and before you know it, your car is broken into and people are stealing and others will be watching.
And you know the sad part is, Prudence, when this is happening, you won't even see anyone coming to help you,
because they might equally be victims.
So it's quite sad.
But they are saying we are now going to empower these youths by ensuring that they register cooperatives and of course receive the CDF. Coming to that, do you think it's the right thing to do, considering that these people have in a long time been used to making money quickly, stealing from people and stuff like that, but you want to empower them with huge sums of money? What do you think? Do you think, to begin with, that is in the right direction? If so, how do you think they can better be equipped to ensure that they get in a business sector? Remember that these are people who've never done businesses before. We don't want money to go to waste. Do you think maybe bringing these junks up, forming groups for them and empowering them money is the right direction to use this Constituency Development Fund?
Well, first, I think it's a right step in the right direction, because we're going to look at the root cause in terms of what has been triggering people or youths in terms of engaging in thuggery activities. It's because of poverty, and because these people, it's not that they don't have ideas in terms of business ideas or ideas in terms of doing constructive things. It's because they have, but now they don't have the resource. That's the reason now they get to end up in doing these, or engaging in terms of thuggery activities. But because of CDF, these people are going to be empowered. But how do we get to make sure that, when they get empowered, the money doesn't go to waste? We have to educate them. How are we going to educate them? We have different, and various organizations that get to look at, mental health, number one, which is very important. And then number two, we get to look at entrepreneurship, organizations or firms that we can be engaged in terms of, getting these youths, bring them together, teach them how to go about businesses, teach them how to run money, teach them how, financial discipline and all those things. So that even when you get to equip them or empower them with the money, they already have the knowledge about, in terms of how to go about it. And once I think we get to engage all these, stakeholders, all these organizations in terms of giving them the knowledge and the finances, I think we're going to, be heading in the right direction and be able to end, the thuggery activities that have been experienced in terms of, the areas that you've mentioned in terms of Shibolia, Kanyama, Jonleng, Matero, and, the like.
Looking at Zambia's population and the kind of people that we have, we know that these are people who are not learned one way or the other. What activities do you think they should engage themselves before they can get this financing? What kind of businesses do you think they can come up with to ensure that it suits them to progress? What we don't want is a situation where people receive money and the money goes to waste. That's the situation that we don't want.
And most of the time you'll find that immediately you start making a little money, would want to spend it, buy expensive stuff, buy yourself shoes and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but people would want to spend it, in a careless manner without investing more into business. But how do you say can be a mechanism or a way of putting some certain measures to ensure that in as much as they generate this income, they're able to proceed without
Well, I mean, number one, I think what is really needs to be done before we get to even empower them is education, just like I've said earlier. Let's educate them about how to go about, businesses, how to handle finances. It's not all about going, in class, having, study for 4 years, 3 years or something, but maybe just a month, through, constituency, members of parliament, in engaging these stakeholders, bring these youths together, encourage them, teach them, and then empower them. And then also, I would also request that, the government gets to come up with a robust, monitoring and evaluation, in terms of monitoring how these youths are going to be empowered, are going to be using the money, so that at least we can reduce, the risk of completely, letting the money go to waste. If they are going to set up a committee in terms of that will be monitoring how these funds are going to be used, I think we're going to make sure that the money doesn't go to waste. But firstly, is education, and then in terms of the business that I would encourage these youths to go into, I think I can't really specify, because maybe you have your own idea of business that you think you can strive based on your experience, based on your skills, based on your advantages in terms of your skills. So I mean, but before you get to engage in any business, you need to take a risk assessment, see how best the business you want to engage in can give you profit. So once you get to undertake that risk assessment, and then you'll be able to see that if you get to engage in this business, the risk of making a loss is low, the risk of making a loss is high. So you get to evaluate in those lines. So I mean, people have different ideas. People have different, business that they would like to engage in. But first, take a risk assessment before you get to engage in.
Very important there. Let's talk about the strategies. What strategies do you think government, I know there are layouts and procedures that have been stipulated by the government of how these resources should be done, but let's talk about the strategies. We know that of the past, or rather in the first quarter of this year, we've seen PACRA register a lot of businesses than it was before, and we know this has been due to the fact that there is this constituency development fund that is lying in constituencies that people have to use for businesses. Let's talk about some of the strategies that should be used in selecting the people to benefit from these resources on an economic perspective.
Well, I mean, economically, what is supposed to be done is that, you know, I'm sure, you know, this is what they are doing because, you know, they've been, you know, advocating for, you know, people in the communities to come up with business plans. You know, I think when they get to submit their business plans, they have to, like, you know, scrutinize them very well to see, you know, which one is going to give, you know, the best return in terms of, you know, looking at, you know, how somebody's going to outline their business plan. So I think once they get to use the business plans, because, well, it's not supposed to be just because I know somebody and I'm on the CTF committee. You just have to give them, even when they're not deserving it. But once they get to present what they want to do through a business plan, then from there now we can be able to track, this can work, this can't work, this deserves to be empowered, this one doesn't deserve to be empowered. And then I think from there, we're going to select the best people, the best business plans, which is going to give us, you know, more profit and more, you know, and which is going to give us more profit in terms of who are we going to empower.
I'm going to take you back to the question that my colleague asked you about. You know, when it comes to CDF, quite all right, Prudence, I know there might be some you know, political activities involved. You'll find that, you know, you are qualified. Let's say, for example, Prudence, you have pitched up a very good business ideas. You're very qualified for that. But then due to you're not affiliated to a certain political parties, you know, do you think politics at this time should be involved, or it should be equal opportunity for everyone?
Well, I mean, I just love this dance that, you know, the president, you know, sets up in terms of, you know, making that, you know, making it known that, you know, this CDF is for everyone. It's not for UPND, it's not for PF, it's not for MMD, it's not for FTD, but everybody who is Zambian. As long as you're Zambian, then you get to qualify. So, I mean, if even the members of parliament and everybody who sits in that, you know, CDF committee gets to undertake, you know, the same, you know, stance by the president of saying everybody deserves it, as long as you're Zambian, then I think we're going to, you know, get the best result of it. If we get to remove, you know, the political, you know, stance of it, because politics will just get, you know, to distort, you know, things, and just make, you know, a certain group of people to get to benefit, and the other set of people not going to benefit. So I mean, let's not politicize on this one. Let's, you know, run it smoothly and give people that are deserving, you know, the empowerment.
Okay. Interesting there. We are talking about how is it that the Constituency Development Fund can generate income for those who will be participating, or rather who will be funded. So we are joined by Mr. Webster Wanda, who's an economist, and we were of course analyzing a clip which was played where some street gangsters from Chiwola compound have been grouped together, and they'll be supported and given funding if possible for them to venture into businesses. So the question that we asked this morning is it sustainable for us to pick people from the streets and empower them with resources? How sure are we that these resources will generate income? How is it that we can minimize the damages where you give money to someone and of course they don't utilize it according to the way it is supposed to be? For you, the viewer who's watching Camnet TV this morning, what can be your comment with regards to this? Government has given 25.7 million kwacha to all constituencies for use as Constituency Development Fund, which has been increased, of course, from 1.6 million kwacha. We know this by now because everyone is talking about it. And of course, the Patent and Company Registration Agency, PACRA, has announced that the business registration for the first quarter of 2022 has increased. They've seen an increase to about, if I'm not mistaken, Miriam, 12,000, over 12,000 businesses were registered in the first quarter, of course, and everyone is eyeing the 27.5 million.
That shows you how much people want to, you know, to work and you know, bring development to the country. And I hope, Prudence, I hope that we're in the right direction as a country. You know, we don't have to have this dependent syndrome of I complete my education, I should be employed. We should have young people out there who are able to pitch out their business ideas, you know, work on their own, young entrepreneurs. This is what we want to see in the country. But if we're going to have a mind of dependent syndrome of where we're just waiting to be employed and what we're not heading anywhere as a country, and we hope that will change.
That will not be the case,
Yeah.
of course. And we are talking to Mr. Webster Walia, who's just helping us understand what strategy should be used. Maybe bringing it again, looking at the businesses that we have in the country. I know we are looking at diversification. I know we have the Ministry of Technology. We are looking at improving our technology in the country and stuff like that. But let's talk about the Constituency Development Fund. What businesses do you think we should be targeting as a country to support with regards to these resources?
Well, I mean, I think the best businesses that we can get to engage in is, production activities, businesses. For example, farming. Once you get to empower somebody with farming activity, farming tools, and give them the resource, I think we're going to not only empower that individual or that group of people, or maybe which comprises of 8 to 10 people, but we're going to empower a lot of people. We're going to create jobs for other people, because farming is evolving. So once you get to empower one, it means you're going to empower a range of people. So I think number one is farming. And then number two, we can, get to look at even the same small businesses that we get to see, in markets, because people eat every day. So if you get to engage in selling foodstuffs, I think that can be a money generating business, and can give us the best profits to the people that are going to be empowered.
Of course.
Let's talk about export and importation. Do you think if we have a lot of youths out there coming up with venturing into, like you mentioned, agriculture and what, do you think we'll be able to generate more as a country and export?
So that's the thing. If we want to build our economy and also get to improve our currency, we can only do that, through two things. Number one is through, increasing how much you get to produce locally. Because once you get to produce more goods, locally, it means you're going to have, more for local consumption and more goods for exports. And once you get to be exporting, it means not just exporting your goods, for example, maize, but you also, strengthening your currency. Because the people that will be coming to buy your goods, or the people that, will be selling our goods to, in terms of the foreign people, they're also going to be buying our currency, thereby, making, our currency strong, and you're going to, see that not be fluctuating or changing every day, but it's going to be strong. Why? Because it's going to be backed by our exports. So in terms of, increasing production activities through businesses, such as, venturing into agriculture, I think it's going to, make, us have more goods at our disposal for export purposes.
Of course, that is an important strategy. For everyone who's watching us in the comfort of your home, what is your comment? What strategy do you think government should use with regards to the Constituency Development Fund? We are talking about that, of course, and many other things this morning. Let's get to interact and hear what you have to say. Which businesses do you think government should target? I know most of you are watching already, have businesses, and of course, you want the government to support those businesses. So these are the things that we should be talking about. What is it that government should look at when it comes to even selecting those businesses that should be funded? Others, in case you might be wondering, I've argued to say, on a business perspective, you can't just have anyone do business. You can't just have anyone do business. You can't just fund anyone. It's very risky to invest in an idea that you've not seen produce anything. Maybe Mr. Webster, let me bring this to you. Do you think government should be funding ideas at this point?
Well, I mean, for an investor to be able to invest in, a business, it means there's an idea behind it. That's when our business plan gets to come in. A business plan is a set of, ideas, outlined how we are going to, run a business. So that's the reason I'm saying one strategy that the government can use, through the Constituency Development Fund Committee, is by letting people get to present their business plans. Because once I get to look at, your business plan, for example, you're telling me you have an idea, but how are you going to convince me? It's your business plan, and not by word of mouth. So once I get to read, business plan, get to see your set, marketing strategies, your set, objectives, and your future plans in terms of how you're going to expand your business. That's the only time I'm going to, be able to be convinced. But then the thing is, everybody can be an entrepreneur, and everyone was born to, be an entrepreneur. So I mean, your business plan, for example, you're telling me you have an idea. So I mean. Everybody is an entrepreneur, and I want to encourage the youths out there that let's get to eradicate this mindset of saying, let me go to school, come back, and wait for a government job, and then now for me I'm going to call that a success. But let's go to school with the mindset of creating jobs. And how are you going to be able to create jobs? is through, entrepreneurship. And how are you going to, earn funds for entrepreneurship if you don't have them? We have CDF now. That's the reason I said I think it has come at the right time, because we get to look at unemployment levels. They are high. Look at the number of people that the government wants to hire in terms of health and education. It's low compared to how many people have done what have applied. So that's the reason why now CDF has now come in to question that difference. So now people cannot just get to rely on a government job. I'm a teacher. I'm going to be employed by the government. What if you're not going to be employed? You get to resort to business. So, I mean, business is the number one, drive that is going to, foster economic development, which is going to foster, personal and financial, development. It's only business. Look at, these, billionaires that you get to see in the world. They don't get to sit in an office and be able, on a laptop, 8 hours a day. No, they get to do business. So, I mean, school is very important, yes, for you to gain the knowledge. But again, business is the way to go. Yeah. If you did, formal education, but still get to divert. You can be still doing your formal formal employment, but also get to resort to business. That's the only way we're going to, have personal development and also get to positively contribute to the growth of our economy, even in this rebuilding, stage that we are in.
Very important aspect they are coming from Mr. Webster Walia, who's of course an economist, and we are analyzing who is it that the CDF should be targeted at and what kind of businesses we can of course look into to support with regards to the Constituency Development Fund. Miriam.
Okay, so right about now, Prudence Chota, we are going to call for a break and we'll be right back.
Thank you so much for still staying tuned to Camnet TV. We are just from discussing the Constituency Development Fund allocation and what strategies the government should use. So in studio, we were joined by Mr. Webster Walia, who's an economist, and of course we had a fruitful discussion. But for everyone who's watching in their comfort of their home, the question is, what strategy do you think the government should use when it comes to supporting businesses under the Constituency Development Fund? Let us get to interact and let's get to hear what you have to say with regards to that. But earlier in the program, and of course for those who are watching, you've seen on the set there, the topic today of discussion is the role of the Zambia Statistical Agency, ZAMSTAT, in the development of the country. In the year 2020, we were expecting to have our country's census of population and housing, but unfortunately that did not happen. And of course we also have discussions, Miriam, and debates surrounding the country's inflation rate, where the cost of living is going up, but we hear people continue to say, why is it that our inflation keeps lowering down? So in studio shortly, we will be joined by the Zambia Statistical Interim Statistician General, Mr. Muse Pamlenga, who's going to help us discuss that topic in detail. But before we do that, something yesterday interesting happened. We know that there has been a topic of discussion where, with regards to the FTG University in, of course, Luapula province.
And you know, Prudence, this is one of the topics that has made headlines this week. You know, we had a lot of different stakeholders commenting, giving their comments with regards to that topic. And yesterday, there was a press briefing held by the opposition Patriotic Front Party, who claimed they are not responsible for that. The one who should be answerable to that is the current Minister of Technology, who is Felix Mutati, claiming that when he was then Minister of Finance during the previous administration, so he should be answerable to that. Let's see what that clip says, and we'll get to discuss more when we come back.
Since revelations hit the media on the stalled construction of Frederick Titus Jacob FTJ University, a number of stakeholders have given their perspective, while most pointing fingers on the previous administration of squandering the alleged $33 million. However, during a press briefing held Wednesday in Lusaka, the opposition Patriotic Front have added their perspective to the elephant in the room, dismissing all allegations, suggesting they mishandled the project that was to benefit the Zambian people, especially that of Luapula province. It was a well-packed house geared to respond to some of the assertions surrounding the matter. To start with, former Higher Education Minister Professor Nkandluo has clarified that the $33 million in the question was for the construction of two universities in the name of FTJ University of Mansa District, Luapula Province, and Northern University of Northern Province.
So when you hear the FTJ University project, it actually involves two universities. That is the FTJ in Mansa and the Northern University in Kasama. And when you hear the $33 million that is being peddled around, it doesn't mean that all the $33 million was to go to FTJ. It meant that some of it goes to Northern University and some of it goes to FTJ. So I want to put that on the table so that when people are talking and when they multiply the $33 million into Kwacha, then they say, ha, $33 million to FTJ. No, it's a split between two universities.
And Patriotic Front Acting Secretary General, who served as Luapula Province Minister then, has also given his side of things.
Justice gave a go-ahead to the Minister or the Ministry of Finance to go ahead and source money from an external bank in China for the construction of the FTJ University. All that was happening in Lusaka, away from my position as provincial minister. For us, what we saw was the arriving of the contractor on site. And for me, we got excited as a province that finally the project that was spoken about 5 years ago is coming to fruition. And in 2018, thereabout, I visited the site. And when I visited the site, Honorable Acting President, the contractor was on site.
Meanwhile, the PF Acting President, Given Lubinda, has challenged the Zambian people to probe where the answers are and not be tricked into believing in what it terms smoke on the fire.
It was passed on to other ministers of finance. The other two ministers of finance are no longer in government. But the Minister of Finance, who was there at the time when this contract was being entered into, is fortunately part of the current cabinet.
Yeah.
Felix Mutati was Minister of Finance in 2016. He was Minister of Finance in 2018. He stopped being Minister of Finance in 2018 when he was moved to Ministry of Works and Supply. If these transactions were taking place at the time that he was Minister of Finance, surely can't he simply go to Cabinet and explain that, look, in this contract, money was paid, but that person interfered and took this money? Can't he do that?
Still, the question that bids an answer is, where is the money? Alex Shimba, Camnet News, in Lusaka.
Of course, that was the Patriotic Front administration responding to accusations that they squandered the $33 million United States dollars meant for the FTJ University in Luapula Province. And of course, they were denying those assertions and allegations. But this morning, that is not our topic of discussion, of course. But for those who have to comment on that issue, you can continue sending us the SMSs and all the questions that you have, and we will direct them to the necessary people or relevant people to answer and respond to some of those questions. But right about now, we have the role that the Zambia Statistical Agency, ZAMSTATS, play in the development of the country. And of course, in studio, we are joined by Mr. Musepa Mulenga, who's the ZAMSTAT interim Statistician General. Sir, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And thank you.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Of course, we see a lot of questions pop up from people, Mr. Mulenga. Whenever you announce the country's inflation rate and stuff like that, we have a lot of questions coming up with regards to that, and people wonder to say, why is it that the country's living standard are going up, but the statisticians keep saying our country's inflation is lowering down and stuff like that. But maybe before we discuss that, the first question that would like to find out is, maybe tell us about the Zambia Statistic Agency and the Statistic Act number 13 of 2018 that establishes the agency.
Well, thank you very much for that. And indeed, the 2018 Statistic Act number 13 established the agency from what was initially a department of Central Statistical Office. And the act was eventually operationalized on 6 September 2019 out of an SI, Statutory Instrument number 60, which was gazetted. And it paved the way for the transformation of the Department of Central Statistical Office into a technically autonomous agency or institutions that was given a mandate to be the apex institution for statistical activities in the country. And some of the reasons are quite clear, in the sense that statistics play a role in terms of effective policy formulation at national level, global level, even at individual level. We've got some numbers that we use in our homes. And for statistics to play that role, they must be of quality and they must be relevant to the users. And the Act also provides that the agency establishes or develops a well-coordinated national statistical system. You also know that apart from ZAMSTATS itself collecting statistics, which we normally disseminate, there are various institutions, ministries, departments. We call them statistical agencies that do collect statistics in the course of their duties. We call them administrative statistics. What we want to do is to have those statistic stats improved, and these stats must be of international standards. Because, for instance, if you talk about mortality in terms of children, if you say it's 3%, it must be comparable to the same measure in another country. It must be comparable to the global standards. So the Act actually buys in what you may call the United Nations fundamental principles of statistics, as well as the African Charter on Statistics, and currently now the SADC Protocol on Statistics. So the Act is very, very modern. In fact, a number of countries are trying to pick up that. But all in all, one also, it mandates the agency as the only sole entity responsible for publication of official statistics, but also to, one, promote understanding of statistics. So we deliberately try to explain what each stat means, but more importantly, which has been a big problem, not only in Zambia, but throughout the developing world, the use of statistics. Normally you see a gap between dissemination, there will be a ceremony to disseminate a document, and the use. So we're trying also, it's our responsibility to try and bridge that gap. And of course there are several other functions, and one of them is, for example, we are mandated to undertake the census every 10 years.
Of course, we are going to talk about census in the program as we keep discussing. But maybe for those who are watching, who would like to know, in how many districts of Zambia do we have the ZAMSTAT presence?
At the moment, we have the head office, and then we've got provincial offices, meaning in 10 main provincial offices in 10 districts, at the provincial capitals. Now, for Southern Province, we've got an additional office in Livingstone. The provincial capital for ZAMSTATS is in Choma. And for the Copper Belt Province, we've got an additional office in Kitwe. The provincial capital for ZAMSTATS is in Ndola. And the rest of the provinces have only got one. It arose from some restructuring a long time ago.
Well, let's come to the Zambia's inflation rate. We know that you have announced that it has dropped. It's dropping, and then we have different people saying, how can it drop when we have this? We know that the agency every month announces the inflation rate, among other things. What is the inflation rate, and how is it measured? Maybe you can explain, because we have different people, you know, saying it has dropped, but we see the prices going high and stuff like that.
And of course, we even have a question from one of the viewers already with regards to this. So maybe if you explain, hopefully we can get Mr. Edwin Zulu's question answered. Mr. Zulu, I know you're watching, and I've seen the question that you've sent us, and I hope Mr. Mlenga can respond to that.
Yes. You know, it's interesting, and we do now appreciate people commenting on our stats. It means we are following, and I think it's reaching most of the people. First and foremost, inflation generally, I think, is defined as a sustained increase in the general level of prices, not one single price. The general level of prices. Within that general level of prices, you kind of have a basket, what we call a consumer price index, of the mostly consumed items in the country. So inflation is a sustained increase in the general level of prices. So within there, you may have certain prices not moving, those that we survey. Others will move by 10%. Others may actually fall. But also the influence of each of the items in there will be different. For example, the influence of food in the overall measurement of inflation is higher, because ordinarily in a developing country you find, if you look at someone's income, they'll spend quite a bit, maybe more than 60-70% on food.
Exactly.
So their influence will be very, very different. It will be different from, for instance, if you had a movement in the price of a plug, okay? A plug, because at one time you can forgo a plug. Now, what we also do is that we carry out the surveys from the 1st to the 10th of each month in all the 116 districts of the country. And then we get close to slightly above 33,000 quotations. Okay? And we, within the consumer price index, we've got at least 440 items. Okay? Now, when the agency is reporting that, for instance, the last month in April, inflation was at 11.5%. When we say inflation is 11.5%, as long as we are saying it's inflation, it means prices have gone up.
Okay.
Okay? Prices have gone up. Now, what you do, the next thing is to try and compare, because any number to be relevant, you must compare it with something. Perhaps what happened last month, or 12 months ago, or a target. Okay? In itself doesn't mean anything. So in April, inflation was 11.5% annual inflation, compared with annual inflation of 13.1% in March. So the inflation, the increase in the general level of prices in April on 12 months basis, going back to April 2021, prices had increased by 11.5%. But then, if you compare the annual inflation again, which was 13.1% in March, which was also annual, it means that there's been an improvement, there's been a slowdown. The prices have increased, but at a lower pace. It's the same as if you're driving at 120 kilometers per hour. You slow down and drive at 100 kilometers per hour. You're not saying you're going in reverse, okay, or you've stopped. No, the speed. So what we do every other last days of the month is to more or less, like in simple terms, measure the speed. How fast is inflation moving? Mind you, the government has a medium-term target range of 6 to 8%. Okay, so if you want, you can say, okay, it's 11.5%. Then you compare it with 6 to 8. How far are we? 6 to 8%. How far are we? So as long as there's a slowdown, it means that you're moving towards the target range. You want to see how far you are from the government policy target. Or you want to see, are you better off? Last time, prices are going up, but at a lower pace. So that is basically what inflation is.
For everyone who's watching and you have that question you want to ask Mr. Mulenga, you can call through and ask the question with regards to inflation rate. But of course, he's mentioned that the inflation rate does not mean the price is reducing. It means it's only moving at that particular percentage. Of course, a lot of people get confused.
The only time that would mean prices have gone down in general, because they influence each other. Okay, it's like in class. You get, in one subject, you get 60%, other subject 15%, then on average, to see what you've gotten on average compared to the previous. So in certain subject, you could have done poorly, in other subject, well, but on average. The only time that you've got a connotation, a meaning that prices are falling, is when we reach a point where we'll be saying deflation. We've got deflation in the country, and deflation simply means normally the inflation is negative. But when we say 11.5%, it means it's positive, the increase is.
I was even coming to that, Mr. Mulenga. Do we have countries that have zero inflation rates?
I needed to check, but I can talk about some experiences in Japan. Japan at the time they had deflation, where prices were falling. Okay? But also in economics, that may not be a very good signal. Okay? It may not be a very good signal, depending on why prices are falling. Because if you are a manufacturer, you're a retailer, and you find that your prices have to fall, okay? And you have to balance between the costs. You have to balance, you've got certain things that you have to do. Sometimes it's not a good sign. Generally, any growing economy normally has a certain level of inflation. It's what is acceptable to ensure that you are able to plan, and therefore countries aim for price stability. Where there's limited disruptions, where today you can save money and the value of that money after a time will be almost the same. So Japan had at one time, I can't remember the years, where you had negative inflation. You have, I think, I'm not very sure, countries like Switzerland and them all, where you've got very high prices. If you convert in kwacha, very, very high prices. But the change in the prices is almost zero.
This brings me to my next question with regards to that. What's the impact of low inflation rate on a country or economy?
No. It depends on each country will have to determine what kind of inflation is acceptable to a number of objectives that I would want to attain in a given year. So obviously low inflation is very good. For instance, I was saying the other time that if we did well, we are within 6 to 8%. After some time, it will not be a very, very bad idea. I think you see government moving over time to maybe a target range of now maybe say 3 to 6%. Okay, 3 to 6%. Okay, so each country ordinarily has its own target. Okay, if you look at America, they must normally be about 1%, 2%, and so on and so forth, because of the size of the economy and the various fundamentals that actually. For the Zambian government now, the target range that they are aiming to attain for now, looking at various challenges, the issue of debt, the fiscal, fixing the fiscal, is 6 to 8%.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Interesting explanation. I think, I hope for those who've been sending us those questions with regards to how inflation rate and stuff like that are affecting the country and what it really means, you are getting one or two things from that. Maybe this question, I don't know if it was answered. How is it that inflation rate is measured? I think you spoke to that fact and you've explained. But if you have a question with regards to that, you can you can send us through those questions, or you can call and ask Mr. Mulenga the question that you would like to be answered with regards to the topic of discussion this morning. And of course, we've seen the impact that zero inflation rate would have on a country.
Exactly.
So what do we need to do as a country, in this case, Mr. Mulenga, to lower our country's inflation rate to the target range of 6 to 8%? I know we also put into the perspective that fuel prices are going up. And of course, in the past, just before you announced inflation rate, we were speaking to economists. And of course, just when this fuel increase price was announced, we heard people say, now that it has been announced, we are going to see a very high inflation rate. But this has not been the case. So to ensure that we move to our target range, what is it that we need to do as a country to keep our inflation rate lowering to the target range of 6 to 8%?
Okay, I can pick up on another thing. There's been a reduction in fuel prices. And some people are saying, how come transport fares have not gone down?
Have not gone down. Yeah, we are coming to that as well.
But also, let's look at this. When we do the overall, you know, we also do food and non-food. Okay? And we also do it on a monthly basis. On a monthly basis, we did announce that inflation basically was at 0.7% from 0.8% in March. Now, breaking down into food and non-food, we did say monthly food inflation increased to 1.1% from 0.9%. So this time around, you see, in terms of food, it's higher. It's not a slowdown. Okay? So you also need to go through our bulletin. You actually see a number of prices and main consumer groups. Some of them actually prices actually going up. Okay, but now it's on aggregate. Now, obviously, the role of the agency is not really to talk about what government needs to do, but I think we can still, refer to the various policy pronouncements that government has made. First and foremost, within there, I can't remember exactly, there is the issue of reducing the fiscal deficit, okay, and also having a complementary, appropriate tight monetary policy that complements this. And basically, the fiscal deficit reduction simply means that you're trying to live within your means. And you live within your means, which is the income, which is the revenue.
The resources that you have.
Yes, and then you limit the borrowing, okay, because also you have to look at the capacity to pay in terms of the borrowing over a period of time, okay. And I think if you did follow the minister's, report for the first quarter of 2022, I think the aggregates showed that we were quite. I think the country was within the targeted revenues and within the planned expenditures. Okay, and that is basically important. But there are other issues also that have to deal with, for example, the foreign exchange market. Okay, we're an import-dependent economy, and one of the things that we need to do, as for instance, we have to import capital, we have to import some consumer goods, as we prop up our own manufacturing sector, we need foreign exchange. And at the moment, you see that more than 76% of foreign exchange earning comes from the mining sector, and that's why the mining sector is still important. But at the same time, we need to, and the government the policy framework is such that you look beyond the mining sector. The issue of diversification, and therefore you need to look at what other sectors can actually give us the growth. The growth in terms of being able to produce what we need, especially in agriculture, and then reduce on the imports. For instance, in fisheries, you know, we import a bit of fish. We can do with our own fish farming activities. And the diversification within the mining sector again, to try and have other export commodities that can earn us foreign exchange. I know Prudence the other time, I think you must have said, how can we perhaps diversify the export? One of the things, simple things I'll talk about here is basically, we've got copper, normally destination Switzerland, China. One of the things that one would want to talk about, can we diversify the destinations? Can we have copper going to more destinations? Because you're already increasing the market, okay? The other way is that, can we have the same destinations importing more from us? Okay? And I think you can learn from countries like Chile. Chile, I think, the foreign exchange earnings from copper, it's the world's largest producer of copper. Okay, Chile. I think it's doing about 9 million or so metric tons per year. But Zambia at about 800 to 900,000 metric tons in a year. And copper accounts for over 75% of the foreign exchange earnings. Chile, I think copper accounts for something like 20 to 30%.
Wow.
But it's the world's largest producer of copper. Okay, so you see there is also some, if you look at the range of items of actually diversified. And this is what some of the programs that you've seen, the issue of the farming blocks, which have been there in the government budget. You're looking at tourism, and tourism also holds the potential for us because it brings in foreign exchange earnings, including employment creation. Some World Bank statistics some time back stated that for every 3 tourists, it creates 1 direct job.
Okay.
So there are a number of things that we need to do, but also to accept our own products, because part of it is that also we've got the taste of consuming imported, and that puts pressure on the demand for foreign exchange. And I'm sure maybe some of you may have, between you, Prudence, and colleague, you may have some foreign exchange in your handbags.
Of course. Yes. We have some dollars.
Yes. So that is that.
Yeah, I was just challenging my colleague the other day to say, if you are in the habit of overspending and you don't know how to control yourself, buy dollars and keep them in your home. You won't be tempted to use them and buy resources. It will be very hard. Okay. So we are discussing, of course, the role that the Zambia Statistics Agency plays in the development of the country. And of course, questions that have been coming in from a lot of stakeholders, including those who are following online. We have a question here to say, the inflation going down has not helped at all. Even the 2-kwacha fuel reduction has not helped at all. It is a mockery. Goods and services are still too costly, especially the basics, meal, sugar, cooking oil, and meat, which is essential for human survival. As for balanced diet, I submit. This is someone who's watching, who's explaining to say the reduction of fuel and inflation is not helping at all. And he's raised concerns to say these prices keep going up, Mr. Molenga. And of course, he's explained what inflation really means. It does not mean when they say inflation is reducing, then the cost of living is reducing. It means prices of goods are going up, but at that particular rate compared maybe to last year or last month and stuff like that. For food inflation, of course, Mr. Molenga has mentioned to say it went up by about 1% from 0.8%, meaning the price of goods and services are still going up, but at 11.5% compared to 13.1% last month, if you talk about annual inflation rate. Moving away from inflation rate, we have a topic that has been critical for every one of us who's watching, and that is the issue to do with census. We know that Zambia was in 2020 expected to carry out the census of housing and population, which is an activity that is undertaken every 10 years, but that could not happen. And of course, we have Mr. Msepa Mlenga in studio, who will be maybe updating us on why that was the reason. And of course, it was pushed to 2021 and now 2022. But maybe before we move on, we have a caller. Hello, good morning. Can you please tune down the volume to your TV set? Okay, we are getting
we can get your feedback, sir. Could you please reduce the volume on your TV set?
Okay, please go ahead with your question and contribution, and also tell us where you're calling us from.
We can get you, sir. Can you please tell us where you're calling us from, your name and your contribution?
I'm listening to your topic there concerning the inflation. Can the panel explain to me the real meaning, simple meaning of inflation? Because this animal has been there for some time. So I would like to know the simple meaning of inflation. When a lot of manufacturing sure goods or what? I want to know the exact meaning of inflation, the simple term of inflation.
All right, what is your name, sir?
I'm Mr. Piri,
Calling from where? Mr. Piri, thank you so much for calling Camnet TV this morning.
I remember when we first started this discussion, you mentioned that a lot of people would want to know more about inflation. You know, there are a lot of questions with regard to this. And he wants to know the simple meaning of inflation. I know you spoke about this earlier on, but maybe to help Mr. Piri out there understand, maybe you can just re-echo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Piri. I appreciate your question. Basically, inflation, I did say in general terms, I will not use sustained now. Perhaps allow me to say that it's a continuous increase in the general level of prices. Now, general level of prices meaning a number of prices for the mostly consumed items. That's basically what it is.
Okay, I hope Mr. Piri has been able to pick that.
Then the other thing I think you did allude to, is it too much money chasing too few goods? That basically goes into trying to, try to explain, what is, because inflation could be demand pull, where there's so much demand, and then as against the supply of goods that are being demanded for. And in general terms, you find that if you find that people are asking for your item, there's a tendency to increase the price of that. Okay, there is also supply challenges, just limited supply, and therefore, like during the COVID period, we had a problem of supply of a number of items, for example, stock feed, and that pushed up the prices. So basically, that's what it is.
Okay, Mr. Piri, I hope your question has been answered by Mr. Musepa Molenga, an interim statistician general from the Zambia Statistics Agency. If we know the Zambia Statistics Agency, every month at the end of the month, they give us an update of the country's inflation rate. And we've been receiving a lot of questions with regards to what it is. That's why we invited him on the program today, so that he can just explain what is the true meaning of inflation and how is it that it is measured. But in case maybe you're just tuning in and you are wondering what that is, this program is also being streamed on our Facebook page. You can just go back, watch the clip, and understand what is it that inflation is. But of course, he's mentioned that it is a general increase in the price of goods which are different.
The simple term for Mr. Piri to understand exactly. So right about now, Prudence, we are going to talk about the 2022 census. You did earlier mention that it was pushed from 2020, we didn't have it. 2021, we didn't have it. Now being pushed to 2022. Maybe you can just tell us more. When is it starting?
Well, on 31st December 2021, the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Honorable Stumbeko Msokotwane, did issue a statutory instrument, number 92, that the census will be conducted from the 18th August to 14th September this year. So those are the dates. That's a 1 month exercise in terms of the activity.
Okay, we might have a viewer out there who would want to know the importance of census in the country. What's the importance?
Well, let me first mention one thing. I think in the Roman times, think that was the time that I think they started this issue of census. Census basically means a complete count. It's different from a survey where you just pick. It's a complete count. So you have to do the census of chairs. It's all the chairs, 1, 2, 3. And a census of population and housing basically means you count each and every person. Now, the Romans, I can't remember the name of the king, usually did conduct a census of men. I think adult men only. And that was being used for planning purposes for the war. So when the king was satisfied that he had enough able-bodied men, he had counted, then he would decide to wage a war. So the census of able-bodied men was important. So it went into planning a war. Who do what? When can we do this? So even in modern day times, a census of any country is key to plan the allocation of resources, the provision of public services by the government. Not only the government, but even our cooperative partners. For instance, you need to know, firstly, how many people do you have in a given area, so that you can allocate resources to ensure health services, effective health services are provided. And these effective health services will include the number of ambulances, will include nurses, like now government is doing that, doctors, because you can also go further in the developed world, and what most of developing countries are moving to. You'd want to have a certain ratio, a doctor to so many patients. One of the things that you see visibly when you go to a number of health centers is the long queues, and perhaps you are on an appointment to see a doctor. You always be able to see a doctor after some time, okay, because the number of doctors are limited relative to the population, okay. So with proper census statistics and resources being mobilized, it becomes easy to see areas that requires intervention. Schools, for instance. In a given area, you would want to know how many people there are. Do we need to have a school in that area? For instance, there's been an argument that you would not want to have children walk more than 3 kilometers to go to a school, okay? But you need to have the numbers, right? So the census, like any other statistics, are important in terms of planning. But also now we've got the global aspirations, like Vision 2030. You've got SDGs. The census provides a number of indicator denominators for us to track, to monitor how we're doing with the SDGs. What about, for example, sewer systems, water supply systems? Because once you have, for instance, a census, then based on that census, you could now also have a solid basis for projections. For example, you'll be able to say, in Osaka, the way things are happening, in 5 years' time, we are going to have so many people. We need to expand, for instance, our ability to supply electricity for those that are applying. Our ability, for instance, to the demand, like the demand for poles now is quite high, for electric poles. What does Zafiko need to come in and say, okay, fine, we need to have more plantations. So it's very, very important, and it's the biggest peacetime exercise in any country, because everyone is involved.
Okay, maybe looking at time, I think we are almost running out of time. But a viewer out there is asking to say, when it comes not to having census in a long time, what effect does this have on our economy? And of course, you can maybe mix that question or answer with, how is it as citizens we can contribute to making census possible? So someone is asking the impact that it has since 2 years down the line we've not had census. And of course, we as citizens, how can we make census possible? How can we contribute to making our census possible this year?
Well, first, the citizens, you must make yourselves available and take the word out. that everyone must be counted. Because one of the most challenges in terms of the census is either you have an undercounting or overcounting. And now not having a census over a sustained period of time does affect planning. Because now we've had to rely on projections. Now, projections based on 2010 census. Now, ordinarily in statistics, projections beyond 5 years reduces reliability of the numbers. And if the reliability is reduced, it means even the planning itself, the post formulation will be affected. And that's why in countries like Canada, where they've got quite some resources, they actually do their census every 5 years. But we're a developing world, so 10 years is what is in the Act. We just have to ensure that we undertake the census every 10 years.
We have people from the Central Statistics offices or the officers that will be deploying, visiting homes, and sometimes we see some resistance from people, and sometimes even giving fake information
yeah.
with regards to that. So maybe what is your word with regards to that to the citizens out there?
Yes, I think I'd like to appeal on behalf of the Zambian government. The census is a very important tool, and the cooperation from everybody else, even the data that is collected is confidential. What you're going to see are just the numbers at national level, provincial, district, ward level. It will be good, for example, for lawmakers, members of parliament to know how many people they have in their constituency, so that they will know what resources are required, at what level you want to know that. So the participation of everybody will help the government, will enhance the government to be able to provide and plan for required public services, roads, schools, hospitals, and so on and so forth. So I would urge everybody else, when it comes to census, to make yourselves available and just give information as it is.
Okay, before we let you go, I know we are running out of time right about now, but maybe you can talk about the budget, and do we have enough resources in place to conduct our census this year in August?
We've got a commitment from the Treasury. In fact, even last week, not last week, on Tuesday, of the Secretary of the Treasury, who again came to see what we are doing. I think for people who've been to Zamstats, you've seen bicycles now, we are taking them out, motorcycles, we're taking out. He did again came and made a commitment that the resources will be found. And I can tell you that the entire 85 million, which was in the budget for 2022, has been disbursed already, and now we've agreed on another profile. Every monthly profile. For April, we received the 80 million that we had agreed on, and the government obviously is appealing to the donor community cooperating partners. Some of those that we are already working with as an agents, like UNFPA, the World Bank, US Census Bureau, to come in and assist. The census is a mammoth task, and most of the countries normally have to also call upon the cooperating partners to come and help out. But we're also appealing to the private sector to come in, because the data that we are collecting is also good for the private sector. For example, the mapping and listing data, it can be used for investment decision making. So we also, and some of them actually have come on board, and I'd like to thank them very much, especially in publicity. Right now, you'll be seeing on Choppy's flyers, we've got the census logo there. Choppy's have agreed to be playing the census jingle in all their outlets, as well as we are expecting ShopRite, and we are engaging some more. But for those that we have not yet reached, I think we are calling upon them to come and partner with the government and make the 2022 census a success. We can only succeed if all of us come together. It's good for our country.
Of course, census is very important undertaking, and everyone, including you watching in the comfort of your homes, or maybe on your gadgets, or maybe you're traveling and you're watching this program, it's important for you to ensure that you participate in making census possible. And it's important, of course, for us as a country to hold our census of housing and population this year, 2022, because we've already missed 2 years down the line. And for George Mwale, I know you were watching and you're asking, how is it that you can join the Camnet football team. Just stay tuned to watching Camnet TV. When the advert is played for you to join, definitely you will be given an opportunity to come and showcase your skill and be part of the team. But keep watching Camnet TV for that advert. We do advertise always when there is a team that is being formed. So we appreciate your company on this program, and for everyone who was watching, and of course for Mr. Piri who called, and for everyone who sent the text messages. In case we've not been able to respond to your text message, we will follow up and ensure that we'll respond to some of those questions. Keep the questions coming, and let's contribute to make Zambia a better place. From me, Prudence Chota, my co-host Miriam Kayemba, and of course the guest for this morning, it's bye-bye until next time. Keep watching Camnet TV. God bless you.